While Respawn did technically tell us that there were changes to the firing range in the Season 18 patch notes, mentioning that there would be a new Nessie, followed by an Ominous, and more, they did definitely not tell us about this mysterious door that suddenly got added to the firing range. Interacting with the door with different legends gives different reactions from these legends, and in the meantime, while some other members of the community are desperately trying to figure out how to get the door open, we will continue to go over the rest of the changes in Season 18 that you weren't told about. Because frankly, just like with every season, there's a lot of things that for whatever reason didn't make the patch notes. For example, cool change that I look forward to actually seeing in-game has to be this particular one. Basically, if a player is banned and removed from the match, instead of them just disappearing and turning into a death box, the entire lobby is now notified about them being gone. It is name and shaming to the highest degree, and I'm all for it. Something else I'm all for has to be this change to the weapon mastery. If your weapon mastery reaches level 100, the weapon display HUD or plate shows a different, much cooler, now animated icon, rather than the dull, all-white icon we've seen before. Maybe there's finally a point in spending time leveling these damn weapons up? Or what do you guys think? Does this make up for the lack of a unique weapon mastery skin? Personally, I don't think so, but at least it's a pretty cool and unique look. And I hadn't really been thinking too much about the weapon mastery, I kind of forgot that that was still a thing. But what I have been wondering about is how much damage does the charge rifle really do? In the patch notes, all the information that we do get is that projectiles gain more damage over longer distances, and we only received 2 examples, that it deals 75 damage at 50 meters and 110 damage at 300 meters. But what is the maximum damage that it can deal? Now, sadly, the firing range only allows us to work with about 300 to 400 meters, so there's actually no good way to cap it out. Instead, Madon and I went into a lobby, we found this stretch of an open field, or I guess water on storm points, and we measured out a distance of 1100 meters between the two of us. So let's just take a look and see how much damage this bad boy can really do. Well, it turns out that it caps out at 110. It's just really unclear in the patch notes. Revenant, in addition to his new rework and the default skin, and by the way, you can switch between the old and new look in the loadout screen, he actually received a new healing animation, which looks pretty damn cool, but that's not the only change to the animations that we have seen. The healing animations in general seem to now be visible in third person, and allow the user to look down and as such lean forward and hide their head when playing behind the head glitch, which is pretty useful. But that sadly cannot be said about the Mixtape backfill. As we all know by now, Mixtape is supposed to fill up the lobby if anyone leaves, and it has been a little bit glitchy since the start, seemingly not working properly up until a few weeks ago when some users reported that they were finally getting backfilled into games that had already begun, or it had players fill out their already started lobbies. But according to Reddit, it appears that the looking for player icon no longer shows up if somebody leaves, implying that the game just doesn't try to backfill a Mixtape anymore. And speaking of matchmaking, prior to the new season, the upper half or so of the player base has started noticing something is different. Almost every lobby is a lot more sweaty. The lobbies take longer to fill up, with the queues sometimes taking several minutes to make one lobby. And once that one lobby pops, it's filled to the brim with 20 bomb, predators and 4Ks and free stacks playing incredibly sweaty. Many players, myself included, assumed and sort of hoped that this was a result of the end of the season, leading to fewer players queuing up and playing pubs, and leading to the matchmaker struggling. But as we've jumped into a new season, we are still seeing the same insanely competitive lobbies, and I see complaints again and again about these lobbies from players all over the skill spectrum. Hell, I see it on my Facebook, on my YouTube, and the Apex Reddit is littered with complaints about the matchmaking. There's a chance that Respawn is testing something new with how the game matches players together, or maybe they've just decided to change it all together. We simply have to wait and see how it develops down the line, but what we do know more about right now is that Ballistic's tactical, the Whistler, was nerfed in the patch notes, where how long it takes for an overheated weapon to cool down was changed from 12 seconds to 8, but it turns out that this nerf, for whatever reason, isn't in-game, meaning that it still will take 12 seconds for the Whistler effects to go away on its own. This is probably just a bug, but it is worth knowing about if you were one of the 10 people praying for a Ballistic nerf this season. And speaking of bugs or things not making it to the actual game, let's talk about the ADS strafe speed nerf to SMGs. You know, the whole deal where the aim down sight strafe speed was going to be lowered from 0.85 to 0.75. That was supposed to apply to all of the SMGs in the game. Yeah, that one. Anyways, it turns out that for whatever reason, this nerf is currently not applying to all of the SMGs because both the Volt and the Core SMG are completely unaffected by it. While according to the patch notes, the double tap and hammer point hop-ups were removed from the rotation, the hammer points weren't removed from ground loot, meaning that you can still equip the RE45 with hammer points like previously. It is worth noting that if you do craft the Mozambique out of the replicator, as expected, it does come with hammer points, but unlike any other gun that I can think of in recent history, you can actually take the hammer points attachment off and then equip it to an RE45 if you would like to instead. And speaking of taking things off, it appears that Respawn, for whatever reason, no longer displays what ranks your ranked teammates actually are. I'm not entirely sure why they decided to make this decision. Maybe it was to curb toxicity, or maybe as a means to bring less attention to the rank system being weird, or maybe because the hidden matchmaking rating very often didn't correlate with your actual in-game rank. Either way, as far as decisions go, it certainly is one. But there are way more changes to rank that we weren't told about, and while some things are under the hood and far from noticeable at a first glance, this next one certainly is. For whatever reason, you can no longer see your teammates' placements, their kills, their damage, or even how many teams are left when spectating them either. This could be chalked up as a bug, but at the same time, I can also see how the anti-toxicity police could be on top of this one, so we're just going to have to wait and see how it develops. I also quickly want to bring attention to the loot, because it's definitely changed a lot. While the patch notes did mention that we would see a decrease in blue and purple weapon attachment spawn rates by 20 and blue and purple armor spawn rates by 30%, it certainly feels like there's less loot overall. Maybe the overall loot table has been adjusted in addition to the changes to the higher tier loot. Because other than the guaranteed high-level loot spots like support or assault bins, or the pre-made armor spawn positions like the supply bins on mill, it's near impossible to find a high-level armor or any decent attachments to begin with. Hell, even finding a decent gun, or a gun in the first place, without turning the entire point of interest upside down is turning into an almost impossible feat. But do you know what isn't an impossible feat? Movement techniques with the new Revenant Reborn abilities. While we have seen a short introduction of his abilities in the patch notes and in the blog post, users are currently investigating ways that his abilities can be taken to the next level. I mentioned some of these techniques in the Legend review video that I posted on my channel recently, but after that, and this was like 12 hours ago, some new techniques have actually been discovered. And odds are, once this video is actually, edited and up, even more will have come out. But let me keep you up to date. The first and the most important finding is that the Revenant Shadow Pounce stacks with your current movement speed and your velocity, meaning that it can be combined with other movement techniques to stack your movement speed. The fastest that I have seen anyone go is when combining a super glide and a frag grenade boost with the Shadow Pounce, because this sends them absolutely flying. You can also tap strafe during the start of the Shadow Pounce animation, which will let you turn on a dime. It makes your character look really wonky in third person, and most importantly, it allows you to jump out and tap strafe back onto high grounds above you that you wouldn't be able to reach otherwise. But the most important one that I actually forgot to mention in my previous video has to be the Revenant Dash Cancel. If you pull off a super glide while still holding your tactical and then release the tactical after the super glide is finished, you will gain access to your gun and be able to fire it while midair. And this looks really cool, is a really high skill expression ability, and I really hope that it stays. Also, another thing I forgot to mention about Revenant is that while the rework does allow you to choose between the new and the classic Revenant skin, it seems like Respawn only reskinned the default skin, and any other recolors are still the old classic version of the skins. Which, if I'm gonna be honest with you guys, is a bit of a disappointment. I guess they didn't feel like those were worth changing up. Either way, those were the 18 things that they did not tell you about in the patch notes. If you want to learn more about the new Revenant, make sure to check out the video on the screen from a Revenant Reborn Legend review. And of course, by the way, while undocumented changes are an evolving subject, videos really aren't. So I've decided to keep a developing thread on Twitter, or X, that will keep updating as more things are discovered. Make sure to follow me on Twitter so you'll stay in the know. I'll also link the thread in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Peace out.